Where'll you be going?
Texas?
Damn, son, where'd you find this?
Go on, make it happen.
And now here's Steve and Michelle.
Welcome from the heart of Dripping Springs. We are Mallet and Michelle, hosted by me, Michelle Lewis, and Steve Mallet.
Hey, Michelle, how you doing?
Hey, Steve, I am so excited today.
We've got a big guest coming on, another one.
We do, I know.
Tucker Max is going to join us.
Tucker Max, if you don't remember Tucker back in the early 2000s, he kind of started the genre Fratire.
Yeah, that's what I heard.
He was kind of a big deal back then, and now he's a Dripping Springs resident.
What was the movie? I hope they serve beer in hell.
Yeah,
Is that what it was?
I hope they serve beer in hell. But he's a New York Times bestseller. He was also on Time Magazine's 100 Most Influential People.
Sold 4.5 million books worldwide and was one of the very few authors that was on the New York Times bestseller list.
Three times
at the same time.
Yeah, so he's pretty.
And he lives in Dripping Springs.
He's a pretty interesting guy. I actually read his book when it first came out back in early 2005, 2006.
There's a bunch of them.
I hope they serve beer in hell. Yeah. And I think I bought the second one about. Well, I won't say it because it's assholes finish first. But he has a quote that I thought was really good, and it kind of sums him up a little bit. No one has it all figured out, especially not the people who are acting like they do and judging you because of it, pretending to be something you aren't because you're just trying to please a bunch of judgmental hypocrites and doo-doo heads. It's not the way to be happy. Living the life you want to live is. It really is that simple. So
that's pretty good.
I think we should. We need to buckle up. I don't know what we're going to get with this guy when he comes in.
I'm thrilled that he's agreed to come on our little podcast, and I know it's going to be fun. So,
well, we paid him $10. So
yeah, that's right. We broke the whole budget, didn't we? We're just going to blow it all in one splash here. The whole year's budget.
$10. $10.
The show today brought to you by Capital Farm Credit, M. Elliott Studios, Mallet Integrity Team, Pig Pen Barbecue, and you know what? We've been negotiating with another sponsor. I'm super excited about this one. We're not going to name it yet. We're not allowed to do that yet, but this is going to be a sponsor that pretty much every one of our listeners should contact at some point. If you own a house or a commercial building, you're going to want to talk to these folks. So in the next couple of weeks, we'll be able to announce that. But I'm really excited about that one. And they're great people. They really fit the character of our show. They're just good stand-up people.
I think so, too. I think I'm really excited. Speaking of small business support, I started really thinking about kind of what's going on in Dripping Springs and all of the people that really need our support in kind of keeping our small town small and what we love about it. And, we mentioned Pigpen. We went to Rosehaven last week.
Time and Dough,
Hill Country Ranch Pizzeria and Sweet Shop, 12 Fox. Rippy's, for instance, sold right on Mercer.
Yeah, I heard that. I have no idea what's going to go there.
No idea. Probably a Target.
That is one of the
a Target.
Yeah. That's one of the last connections to the historic part of Dripping Springs in that so much stuff happened at Rippy's, that falling down old wooden building that I'm surprised didn't catch on fire a million times over the years. But what a great place. People would just sit there on that front little porch there and tell stories and, all the feed signs up there. And I don't know if you remember back, I don't know if they've been doing it the last few years, but during the Founders Day parade, you could go over there. If you had a float, you could say, hey, can I borrow 10 bales of hay? And you could borrow 10 bales of hay, put it on your trailer, sit on it, throw candy from it, and then take the hay back. They didn't charge you a dime. They're great
You just
people.
weren't allowed to use silly string. That was the only rule that they had.
Yeah,
no silly string.
Silly string's not good for cows.
But I also heard that Mercer Street Dance Hall is selling. They the Dotons are looking at retiring, so they are selling that property. It's not, obviously the original Mercer Street.
Right.
They moved
down
over.
On Rancho 12, yeah.
But with this labor crisis, this supply chain issues, oh my gosh, rising prices, the fuel, the inflation.
Rising prices on chips are because of the the greedy companies.
They're absolutely.
Joe Biden got us straightened out on that over the weekend at the Super Bowl.
There are 33.3 million small businesses in the U.S., employing more than 61.6 million people. 20% of those new small businesses close within a year of opening.
That's true.
Which I found fascinating. But then only 35% of small businesses actually make it to their 10-year mark.
The success rate for small businesses is not very high. It's a hard way to make a living. It's very rewarding if you can do it, but it's bankrupted a lot of people over the years trying to realize their dream of owning a small business.
Yeah,
think about that. When you're in Dripping Springs and you want to go to Taco Bell or Starbucks or, and you have an alternative to go to Pigpen or go to Mazama or go to Time and Dough to get your coffee.
Yep.
To get your coffee. Go do that. Mm-hmm. Go get your food at one of these local places. Support these people. And like at Pigpen, man, they know us by name. They know you as Michelle, and they know me as Fajita Tacos.
Chicken fajita
tacos.
Your chicken fajita taco.
Support the local people that support us. These businesses give back to the local community. Nobody in Starbucks is giving back to our local community.
No, and so when you're making your Friday night plans, go in there and support them. At 12 Fox, I know that we're recording a week after. Right. But they're having a big Mardi Gras celebration tonight. But they always have stuff going on.
They do,
on the weekend.
And, Bill and Michelle, they give back so much to the community. They're always trying to help. And they're not one of those places that's like, hey, look at us. We supported this. We supported that. They just get plugged in and help people. So I have a quick story. The Barton Springs boathouse, bathhouse, sorry, not boathouse. Have you ever been there and changed in those locker rooms?
I saw that it was going to be renovated and closed for like a year or something,
right?
So
every time I go in there, you just feel this sense of history. Like you can imagine 75 years ago, the guys in there, taking their showers.
Maybe it's the mold. It's the mold.
Yeah, it's the mold. But there's a sense of history there. But they're going to renovate all of that whole building there, including the little education place in the middle. Did you ever take your kids in there to learn about the salamanders and how aquifers work and all that? They're going to redo all that. So starting February 15th, which is the week before this comes out, that parking lot in front is going to be closed for the construction. The other parking lots around will be open, and the pool is going to be open, but that bathhouse is going to be closed for quite some time. So
maybe they'll rename it and not call it a bathhouse, since that sounds real sketchy.
I hope they keep it. I mean, I hope they keep the name. I mean, it's kind of exciting. It was starting to fall in disrepair. It wasn't in very good shape, but I hope they kind of keep some of the character. I don't want it to look like a brand new commercial, bathroom. But anyway, that's an Austin jewel, and I hope they keep some of the character down there. But be aware, for the next year or so, when you go down there to Barton Springs to go swimming, it's going to be a little bit more of a headache.
A lot more of a headache. Hey, Steve, how are you doing today?
I'm good. Can't you tell?
You're good? You're good?
Yeah.
Elmo put out a tweet last week that asked how everybody was doing. And I think Elmo regretted it because people were tweeting back that how
they were being honest.
They're down in the dumps. And I don't think we've seen Elmo since. I think Elmo is really sad.
Elmo asks how everyone's doing.
And probably wishes he didn't. And I thought it was kind of a small window into the bigger picture that we're having, especially into our younger millennials. And speaking of younger millennials, one of them is actually he's a Gen Zer. He's running the Hays County District Clerk office
right now. So we talked about this, been a year or so ago.
Yeah.
So this guy, he's a Dripping Springs graduate, right?
He's 20 years old. His name is Avery Anderson.
He was 19, I think, when he got voted in.
Avery Anderson.
We decided the only reason he got voted in was because he had a D after his name.
That's absolutely right.
Absolutely it. He had no qualifications whatsoever.
No. Well, a judge just found him incompetent by Hays County judge to run for or to be in office. And
so they're going to remove him?
Well, so this comes after a petition that was already filed to remove him, but a Guadalupe County attorney has been assigned as a special prosecutor in the case. And so I think it's up to him to seek removal from office. So I don't really know how all of that goes, but apparently there was a big kerfuffle with
Oh, I don't think you said that right. I think it's kerfluffle.
It's a kerfuffle.
Sorry, Mom.
That's funny. He sent out a bunch of juror notices and nobody got the juror notices. The jurors didn't show up and 2 defendants didn't have their day in court. But Mr. Anderson blamed it on a tech issue. And then when they went back and they looked, they said, no, sir, it's not. You slept through the training. And oh, by the way, you've shown up to the office several times in your PJs. So come on, people, let's do better than this.
When Elmo asks how everybody's doing and people respond by saying, hey, I'm not doing very well. Yeah. This is one of the reasons people say they're not doing very well. How in the world does that situation make any sense? A 19-year-old kid with no experience gets voted into office to handle a very important job. And he's going to screw it up. And the people that supported him only supported him because he had a D and not an R. And there's no other reason that should have happened. So when Elmo says, how you doing? And people say, I'm not doing very well. There's one of the reasons. Yeah. The world doesn't make sense. If you look at some of our top political leaders, obviously they have no idea what they're doing. And don't get me started on the president, but obviously he's not all there. And so people feel like there's just being lied to constantly. And when you've been lied to so much, eventually you just start to lose a sense of peace that everything's going to be okay. You sort of have... the hope starts to go away that everything's going to work out, right? Okay, yeah, we've had bumps in the road, but geez, when you guys just keep lying to us all the time, and I know the county clerk is not tied to this, but one of the most basic things that Hays County is supposed to do is send us our damn tax bills all the time so we could pay our taxes.
Right, you're sat there forever, right?
Oh my God, it's like, oh, hey, you know what? You got to pay your taxes on time because you don't pay your taxes on time. We're going to fine you to death and then eventually we're going to steal your properties from you. Oh, but hey, guess what? We're not going to tell you how much you owe us. So I got my tax bill for one of my rental properties in the middle of January. It's due by January 31st. I cut a check in the middle of January. I mail it in the middle of January. It did not clear until yesterday, which was February 12th. It's like, come on. It's like, if you want to know why people are not comfortable, these are basic things that just need to happen, and they're just falling by the wayside while people worry about stupid things like, why is the president on TikTok when somebody at the IRS can't be on TikTok? It's like, it's just so stupid what's going on.
So I just suggest next time somebody asks how you're doing, just say you're kerfuckled.
I'm kerfuckled. That's pretty funny. Well, I hope things get better.
I hope so too, because I just feel like you yelled at me to get off your lawn or something. So
did I yell at you?
No, you were like,
oh.
These taxes.
These taxes. Well, here's a lighter story for you. 2 PhDs launched chicken nuggets and Slurpees into near space. Now they're in hot demand. So this story starts out, it's from the Wall Street Journal. This guy, Joseph Gummit, who was a director of marketing for a British supermarket called Iceland Foods, was tasked with promoting the supermarket chain for its 50th anniversary. And he came up with this idea to send their famous chicken nuggets into space. So there's famous chicken nuggets.
Grocery store chicken nuggets?
I guess so, yeah.
Okay.
So
I'm with you now.
In Sheffield in the UK, there's these 2 guys, Chris Rose and Alex Baker, and they have this balloon set up, and they've been sending things into space. And so they sent these chicken nuggets into space. Near space is what they call it. They go up 21 miles. Scientifically, space is supposed to be 62 miles up, but at 21 miles, you get those pictures where you see the blackness, and the curve of the earth.
Uh-huh.
And so they sent these chicken nuggets up there as part of this marketing campaign. Well, right after that launch, they sold 10 million chicken nuggets in a week. So it worked. But since then, these two guys, Chris Rose and Alex Baker, have been sending things into space. They've sent a baby stroller, Tic Tacs, Jameson whiskey, a 7-Eleven Slurpee, a wedding dress, a portrait of Shakespeare, and then another one they did for Harry's Pub, Harry's Bar, a UK pub, a meat and potato pie.
That's a shepherd's pie. You think if I sent you to space, our numbers would go up?
I'm sure they'd go up. That's
to the moon.
It's probably freaking cold up there.
To the moon with you.
But they use these kind of looking weather balloon looking things to send them up into space. It takes about 2 or 3 hours for it to get up there. But their biggest challenges are not finding people that want to send things into space, because apparently there's a lot of people that want to do that. It's navigating all the government, the permits and the logistics.
I'm sure you're sending junk up to space.
Approvals, yeah. So, and then finding the stuff when it comes down, collecting the balloons. So I thought that was actually pretty creative that these guys, now they're making a living sending these things. They charge anywhere from a few $1,000 to $50,000 to send things into space. But all kinds of ways to make money in this world. Don't sit around saying, I can't make a living. If these guys can send up giant balloons into space and make this kind of money, then you can do it too.
I told you I was going to start selling our feet on feet
Nobody's
finders.
buying pictures of our feet, Michelle.
I think my feet are really cute, and your feet
are really ugly. I think more
so
people would buy pictures of my feet than your feet.
I think so. Maybe there's a market for ugly feet. Hey, let us know at Mallet and Michelle.
Which one do you want, ugly feet or pretty feet?
Let's get Tucker Max in here, and let's get this show started.
Yeah. Let's take a little break and get Tucker in here. Proudly sponsored by...
At Capital Farm Credit, they understand that owning land is more than just a transaction. It's a legacy, a future, and a place to call your own.
For generations, Capital Farm Credit has been the trusted lending partner for land loans, farmers, ranchers, and rural dreamers just like you.
Their personalized loan solutions cater to your unique needs, making the journey to land ownership smoother than ever.
Capital Farm Credit, your land, your legacy. Visit CapitalFarmCredit.com or Mark Rutledge at 512-892-4425.
Capital Farm Credit, an equal credit housing lender.
Interior design should be an investment in your life and home. Let M. Elliott Studio transform your space, where interior design meets excellence in Central Texas.
Beyond just selecting colors and furnishings, team principal and owner, Montana Elliott, is a trained and licensed interior designer.
With her knowledge of architectural principles, building codes, space planning, and design theory, her team will work with you to understand your needs and lifestyle.
From concept to completion, M. Elliott Studio is committed to enhancing your space with a timeless and classic style.
Ready to redefine your space?
melliottstudio.com, 512-781-0224.
This portion of the show is brought to you by the Mallet Integrity Team of real estate professionals. They are based in Dripping Springs and bring you over 45 years of combined experience helping people reach their hill country real estate dreams. When you want the best in town, call them at 512-829-2062 or look them up at malletintegrityteam.com. And now, here's Steve and Michelle.
And we're back with Tucker Max. Thanks for coming on the show, Tucker.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, we're honored to have you here.
Thank you.
Tell us.
I was just going to say another one of my stalking moves.
Oh,
successful.
Yeah.
Getting
I don't know
Tucker
how people put up with you.
They put up with me to not put up with me. That's probably part of it.
Just make
it's
her go
easier
away.
to just say yes. Otherwise, she's like a typical real estate
She'll
person.
hound you.
That's why I've been married 30 years.
Yeah.
I've been married 30 years. So yeah.
Yeah, I'm with you.
So you live in Dripping Springs.
Yes, sir.
Where'd you grow up?
I grew up in Kentucky.
How'd you go from...
I'm the long line of Kentucky to Tennessee. Jim Bowie, Davy Crockett, and my wife's from Tennessee. Sam Houston, Stephen F. Austin, the Kentucky, Tennessee to Texas train. I mean, you remember the GTT, Gone to Texas, used to be a thing in Kentucky and Tennessee. We met here in Austin, but it's pretty funny how Everyone's like, oh, it's when I talk to real Texans who are born here, and they're like,
me?
yeah, and they're all like, oh,
Not
you're
me.
not from Texas, and I'm like, who's your favorite Texan? And everyone they list, they'll be like, he's a Kentuckian, he's a Tennessean. So all your favorite Texans are more like me than you are.
My favorite Texan is me, of course. Why
Well, there
wouldn't
you
I
go,
be?
right.
Why wouldn't I be my favorite self?
That's always like, whenever I write a post on social and I like it, people are like, you like your own post? I'm like, if I don't like my post, who would?
Oh my
Like, how-
gosh. So, somebody roasted me the other day on the neighbors page and they said, why did you like your own post? And I said, listen, I run 4 Facebook pages. I never know who I am.
No, the right answer is if I don't love me, who else
There you
does?
go.
How can I
There you
expect
go.
anyone else to?
I'm going to use that next
There you
time.
go.
I'm going to steal it. I'm
Yep.
totally going to steal it. So Kentucky, that's where you went to high school there? And
Yeah, well, so I left Kentucky at 16. I went to a boarding school in New Jersey, Blair Academy, and then college at University of Chicago, then law school at Duke, and then I lived in like all the big cities, and I hated them. Then ended up in Texas about 15 years ago.
Oh, wow. So why did you go to boarding school?
Oh man! All right, what's the shortest answer I can give? There's really kind of 2 reasons. The primary one is my mom was not the best mom, and my dad didn't really want me, but he had money. And so the solution he came up with was to send me to boarding school, right? And so like it was great for me because I wanted to get away from my
So you
mom.
kind of had a built-in family too there.
Yeah, I mean, I wouldn't call them a built-in family. We had people who were responsible for my care.
They poked you with a stick every now and then, make sure you're okay.
Threw meat in my cage. And
More, please.
right. No, it was. I went to when Blair's like considered a top tier boarding school. Now, when I got there, they were in. It was really kind of where the rich people sent their dumb kids. And so like my family wasn't rich and I was smart. So I kind of got in and I got scholarships and all this sort of stuff. And so my dad paid for the rest. And so it was, it worked for me to get me where I needed to go. Because otherwise I was probably headed either to a mid to low tier state school or the military. And then, like once I had nothing to do but academics and it was, 4 O's across the board and
Yeah, you went to Duke University.
for law school. Yeah.
For law school, yeah. Wow.
Yeah.
That's pretty cool.
It's even better. I got an academic scholarship as a white dude to a top 10 law school. That's almost unheard of.
That doesn't happen anymore.
that's
yeah,
all I
It was
know.
a few years ago. Tucker.
That was.
Nowadays, no.
Yeah.
Was it in boarding school that you were voted the most egotistical?
I was at Blair. It's true. It's in my yearbook. Yeah.
That's so funny.
What exactly does that mean? Most egotistical?
Well, it's just because I was like, I thought I was better than everyone. And in some ways I really was. But also, like if you are better and you tell everyone you're better, no one likes you. Right. And so like that, but that was definitely me in high school.
There's
sure.
a lot of people that tell everybody that they're better, but
they
they're
aren't.
Not, no,
Well,
they're
that's a
not
whole
better.
separate issue.
Yeah,
That's
you're right.
just delusion.
Yeah. Usually when I hear somebody say that they think they're better than everybody else, I think, no, you're not.
Right.
You're just trying to make it. So you almost sort of had like 2 lives, right?
Yeah.
You had your
Totally.
younger life, your you call it what a fratire is.
Yeah. That's what the New York Times called it.
Oh yeah,
Not
so
me.
you didn't make that up.
Yeah.
You didn't coin that term.
Yeah.
But so tell us about that life. What attracted you to that? What was that all driven by?
Man, it was total accident, man. Like when I got out of law school, so I went to work for a law firm called Fenwick & West in Silicon Valley. They're a big firm. They represent Google and everybody. And they fired me in like 3 weeks, right? Which is impossible. Like no one gets fired. I started as a summer associate there, and you can't get fired. And I got fired. I got fired quickly. It's like,
Did you yell at the boss or something?
Well, sort of. Way worse.
Oh, then I get fired every day.
Yeah. Well, it was. I was the reason I did a bunch of dumb things, but the reason I got fired is because one of the senior female partners at the firm propositioned me, and I turned her down. And then told everyone, like the dumbest possible thing you could do.
Yeah.
If I had slept with her, I would have been bulletproof. If I just shut up, I'd have been fine. But I found the combination of things that was the dumbest possible thing that left me in the most exposed position, and I did it because obviously I'm better than everyone. better than everyone screwing up.
I'm bulletproof. I can do whatever I want. Nothing's going to happen to me.
Right, yeah. Well, when you're a teenager, you can think that, and then you run smack dab into the real world, and so I got fired. And then after, it was very public. I wrote like an email to my friends about a different thing that I had done there. I got drunk at a firm event. It was really funny. And then they, like assholes, sent that email all around to their friends, and it went through the entire legal profession. And I was essentially blackballed from corporate law, right? Which ended up being great. But at the time, I was not super pleased about that. Yeah. And so from there, it was like, I didn't really know. I went to work for my dad. My dad owns a bunch of restaurants in South Florida. He fired me from the family business in 6 months. So it was.
You're doing better. You're doing better.
And it was pretty depressing at that point when you get fired from the family business by your own father. And so I went. My friend of mine lives in Chicago at the time, or lived, and I was like sleeping on his sofa. And I was writing emails to my friends about my life, and a couple of my friends were like, dude, these are the funniest things I've ever read. Like, this is what you should do. And I'm like, why would I be a writer? Like, writers are bitches. And they're like, well, dude, guess what?
You a bitch.
Right? And so I sent all of like the bulk of the stories in the first book, I Hope They Serve Beer in Hell, I sent to publishers, and universal rejection. I mean, 90% just, didn't respond. And the few that responded, I even got some like, mostly form letters, but I got a couple like personalized rejections, like, this is the worst thing I've ever seen in print. You should never write an email again, like that kind of stuff. And no, for real, it is hilarious now to look at those. Like the stories that literally sold millions of books and invented a new genre. The people whose only job it is to find new writers hated
interesting
it.
Stuff.
Hated it.
Told you sucked.
Exactly.
Yeah, okay.
And so,
did you include any of those rejections in any of your books?
I should have.
I should have. Yeah.
But I didn't, because I didn't want those people to get any fame or popularity. Like, they don't get to ride my coattails. They just get to stew in their own failure, right? And so anyway, so I got totally rejected from publishing. So I put my stuff up on the internet. This is in 2002, back when like the internet was like
started a website.
Right, it was only
writing blogs, basically,
and it was only creepy people in their basement in 2002. But it took off and it kind of blew up. And then by like 04, 05, publishers came back. I got a deal. Book went out in 06, hit the bestseller list, and then came off and then came back on just by word of mouth.
The book was
I Hope They Serve Beer in Hell.
I Hope They Serve Beer in
Hell. I actually read the book when it came out, and I felt guilty when I would read it. I'd read it in kind of in secret.
Snicker, and then
I didn't want people to know I was reading it because it was so kind of crude and vulgar.
I have to read it.
But it was I think I should have brought it. I still have it. I should have brought it. I know. Why didn't I bring it?
So that book was just these short stories about your life.
That's it. It was just stupid things I did when I was drunk.
And who took a chance on you?
It was this tiny publishing house called, well, not tiny. They were the #1 romance publisher, Kensington, and they had an editor there named Jeremy Ruby Strauss, who loved my stuff. And he was like a young dude. And he's like, this dude's writing about what every dude does, but no one admits. Yeah. And so he saw it. He was young enough and came up in that world enough. Because most of book publishing is old women. Almost all of it is old, literally old,
especially
women.
Romance stuff.
Yes, right. And so now it's younger women, but it's very leftist, liberal, even then, and women. And so like it's the worst group of people to decide what young guys would like.
Yeah.
And so I just happened to come along right when the internet kind of broke out and came, and there was ways to reach the world that weren't through gatekeepers. And so and then what I was saying, I honestly didn't think it was going to be that innovative, because I'm like, all my friends do this. Why is anyone going to care? I was too young and inexperienced to realize that like when you're doing the thing and saying the thing that everyone's doing but no one's admitting, then you
get a following.
Right, exactly.
So nobody else was doing that when you wrote this book.
No one else was writing it under their own name. Everyone, I did what everyone in their 20s goes out, gets drunk, acts like an idiot, falls down, throws up, hooks up. I wasn't doing anything that different. I just
says stupid stuff.
Right, exactly.
Yeah.
I just wrote it all down with my real name. And that was a big, because you got to remember, man, it's very different now than 20 years ago.
Oh, yeah.
Like right now, the bad guys are like the woke lunatic left. The bad guys 20 years ago were the fundamentalist right. The ones who were trying to shut down free speech and tell people what to do were the hardcore fundamentalist Christians. It's crazy because I'm old enough to remember when the exact same energy was on the complete opposite side. And so like, when I got sued a couple times for all kinds of nonsense, the ACLU like would defend me then. Now they'd be the ones attacking.
Yeah, they'd be the ones
and nothing's changed. Like the same stuff, right? Yeah. I was just the one admitting what I was doing under my own name, which no one, like you said, most people were ashamed about drinking, hooking. I just was like, I don't care.
That's what I was going to ask you. So you were almost proud of the lifestyle you were living versus what you were proud of. Yeah. So why were you proud of it when so many other guys at the time were like almost ashamed of that lifestyle?
He already got fired within 6 weeks. So what did he have to lose, right?
So proud's not the right word. It wasn't that I was proud. It's just that I wasn't going to be ashamed of who I was. Those are different things. Yeah. I was accepting of who I was. I'm like, look, this is what I want. I'm young. I'm single. I have no responsibilities. I have no kids. These girls want to hook up with me. They want to get drunk with me. There's no problem.
Right.
If someone else has a problem, that's their problem. It's not my problem or our problem.
So those other people that have a problem generally were probably reacting to that fundamentalist right that you were talking about that was making them feel guilty for doing the things that and nobody was doing that to you.
Or it's their own issues with sexuality, or what I saw a lot, which I was not prepared for, was the envy. Like how many people hated me, and I didn't understand why. And not the fundamentalist Christians, like people who I thought would think my stuff was funny or like it. And then I realized, they hate me because they want to do what I'm doing, but they're afraid or ashamed to do it themselves. And so the fact that I'm doing it, they don't hate me at all. They hate who they are and what they are and their cowardice, and they're projecting that on me. And I'm like, it took me years to understand that because it's so not who I am, right? And it was so hard to understand and to really get, which I think anyone who's successful at all, like you guys are pretty successful. I'm sure you've had the exact same thing happen to you, just in your field, right? By someone else who's trying to do what you're doing and they aren't as successful and they're like, oh, look at this bitch. She thinks she's this and he thinks he's that.
I just had that happen.
They must be sleeping with somebody to get what they've got because they didn't earn it from their own. Yeah,
that's all about them. That has nothing to do with you.
But you know what I love is that you own it still. You're not hiding away from it. It's still on your stories or still on your Facebook or on your website. And anybody can kind of go on because that's part of your journey. That's part of who you are and what you are and why you are. And I think that a lot of people now have become apologetic of their past. Don't you think so?
Don't you think that people do that? They go, hey, something I said 30 years ago, I really wish I hadn't said that. Well, we all, when you know more, you do better, right?
So hold on. Like, I understand this sort of like, listen, I made a ton of horrifically stupid, awful, hurtful mistakes, right? In that age. And I did things that I for sure feel horrible about. But like, I don't need to apologize to some person I don't know who read my stuff, who's commenting on Facebook. Fuck them. The person, if there's someone I have to apologize for, it's the person I wronged. Yeah. If I wrong them, then I owe them an apology. I don't owe the audience or some other judgmental person. To hell with them. They get nothing. And those are very, I am uncancelable only simply because, well, there's two reasons. One is like I have money. I don't. But also, I won't do it. Like, cancel culture only has power over those who kneel to it. Right? Yeah. I refuse to kneel to it. Like, just like JP, you guys just had him on. He's a good friend of mine. He approaches it the same way. He's not going to kneel to it. I'm not going to kneel to it. And it's just like, once you say no, virtually all of the power of it dissipates. Now, don't get me wrong. There can be financial and social consequences. Absolutely. For sure. I'm more than happy to accept whatever the consequences are of being true and authentic to myself.
Well, and the other side of that is, even if you offer just the slightest apology, they're on you
that's like
flies on you.
That's
know what?
Throwing chum to a school of sharks.
We're breaking them. We're breaking them. We're going to get them.
Maybe if I feed the sharks, they'll go away.
Yeah,
that's not how it works.
It's not.
It's
I know.
the opposite.
I know. Yeah. Well, and then the other part of that is these people that, like you say something, it doesn't have anything to do with this particular person, but that person says, well, I'm offended. Well, it wasn't even about you. You can't make this about you. It was not even about you.
That's always my default response. Your offense is your problem.
That's right.
Has nothing to do with me.
Yeah.
Nothing.
I'm stealing that. Totally stealing that with you.
So at what point did you sort of start going through this transition? Now you're a family man. You've settled down a little bit. What was that journey like? What's
funny is the assumption is always like, the bad boy changes for the love of a good girl. That didn't work. That didn't happen with me at all. Like I sold lots of books. There's a movie about my life, all this sort of stuff. And then like I got to the point, man, where it was like, I got tired of all of it, right? Like I don't mean this in a judgmental way, but drinking, hooking up, partying can be really fun for a while. But when it became my whole life, eventually I was like, this is shallow, and this is, for me, shallow and ultimately meaningless, and not how I want to spend the rest of my life. Like I'm glad I did it for a little while. I probably did it for longer than I would have if it hadn't become my job.
I was going to say, It became your career.
Right, it did. Yeah. And I did kind of get stuck in it for a little while. But it's why at the end of my fourth book, Fratire book, I kind of retired from Fratire to give myself the space to like, hey, listen, I'm going to go do something else. I don't even know what it is. Doesn't matter. I'm just done with this phase, right? And so then I kind of had to like, I had to grow up.
Reinvent yourself,
right?
Do you think?
And sort of, not reinvent, just more evolve and grow. And most people, I think, when they do that, they feel like they're supposed to discard or apologize for or disown their past. I don't. Like, I'm not necessarily like, oh, everything I did was great. No, a lot of what I did was stupid. It just is what it is. And then I moved past and through that. And then, like, what I eventually realized, I got everything in my life dialed in, like health, money, fame, whatever. And I, like, was only, like, 10% happier than when I was, like, poor and anonymous and broke and all that, right? And so I was like, okay, well, I like great shape, didn't matter. Like if making everything external perfect doesn't make me happy, then clearly it's not an external problem. It's an internal problem. Right. And that's like when I kind of started therapy and all kinds of healing work. And that was, a long path.
How old were you when you were going through this journey? I was
about 34 to 36 is when I went through that transition. And I started serious therapy about 35. About 2 years into that, that's when I was like kind of ready to meet a great woman, met my wife. And then we've been married about 10 years. And then like I was far enough along on my journey when I met her that I was like ready to settle down. I was emotionally capable. of being a great partner and all that sort of stuff. But I thought I was like, oh, I'm halfway there. I was like 5% of the way there to being healed, right? But because I was coming from a relatively pretty immature place. So it was, but we were I was 10 years older than her, but which is great because we're about the same emotional level. Right? Women mature a lot faster than dudes.
I understand. My husband's 9.5 years older than me, so I totally get it.
Right, but it works great for us. And so, because she's pretty mature for her age, and I'm immature for my age, so it's a fit. And then over the last 10 years, we've both grown and kind of walked that path. We've walked our own paths, but together supporting each other. And then, now I have 4 kids, live on a ranch. But for me, man, the big thing was at some point I had to decide that I wanted this, right? And then that's not enough. Then you got to, why do I not have it? Right. Change your life. And then you have to kind of continually recommit to it. And is my life aligned with what I say I want, et cetera, et cetera? And that's how I got to Dripping. That's why I moved out of Austin, everything.
Why Dripping? This tiny little town in Texas.
Yeah.
What dragged you here?
I moved to Austin in 2009. As soon as I was done with my movie, I lived in LA for 2 years to do the movie. I hated LA.
Oh, yeah.
Like, it's so funny. I got there in 2007, and I thought I was like a kind of jokingly, but still kind of seriously, I thought I was a little bit of a soulless narcissist. And then I got to LA and I'm like, oh no. I didn't realize what soulless narcissists were like. Like, I'm nothing like these people.
Yeah, I know.
Like, it was awful.
It's a hard place to live.
I hated it.
Yeah.
I hated every aspect of it, like except the weather, right?
Yeah.
And so to the minute that I could leave LA, I left. And I thought I'd go back to Chicago because I'd lived there for 7 years. And but it was winter, and I'm like, I'm not going back to Chicago for winter. So I'm like, what's the opposite city of LA, but still warm? And so I thought, Austin. I'll go to Austin for 6 months, and then I'll go back to Chicago. And then I got here, and I just loved Austin. This was 2009, so this is back before the Californians really invaded, you know? And so it was great, man. It was fantastic. I met my wife, and then, then of course,
then
COVID.
the creepage happens. The creepage,
Yeah, it was COVID, and then we all know what happened in COVID. And so my wife and I were like, we got to get out of Austin. It's not our place anymore. And then we looked at all around. We could lived anywhere, right? And big assessment of the whole country, the world. But then now we're staying in America. We're in America, and then realized Texas is great, and Central Texas is probably the best place in Texas. Yeah. And so then we literally just started driving around Austin, which we already kind of knew. We knew we weren't going east, right? Because it's crappy, horrible east, and we knew we probably weren't going north because Cedar Park is horrible. Right? It's like just go live in a strip mall, right? Yeah. And we knew we probably weren't going. We thought maybe south, but then we really kind of explored the hill country, and we're like, no, we love it. It's amazing. And so we found a place in Dripping that was beautiful, and we were like, all right. We knew we wanted to get on land. It wasn't so much getting out of Austin. It was more like we had talked about getting on land for years, and we just hadn't. And then 2020 hit, and 2021, and we're like, what are we waiting for? And so sold, in March of 21, and we didn't find our place in Dripping until July or so of 21, and then got out here October of 21, and been here ever since. And it's been great, man. Being on land is a whole. I don't have to tell you, you live out here, but
Does it feed your soul being out here? Is there something about when I first moved out here, when I would go past the Y in Oak Hill, and all of a sudden it was the stress just would kind of come down, and there is just something about this magical about this area out here.
It took me a year to almost de-adrenalize. I didn't realize how adrenalized and how anxious living in a city just makes you. It doesn't matter how evolved or conscious you are. If you're in a high stress situation around a bunch of high stress people, you just get ratcheted up, right? And then you come out here and it's oh. It took me a year to get used to it.
They don't care if they see you at the grocery store or whatever.
It's not even, that is awesome. But just being on land and around, we have sheep and chickens and it's it felt weird for a year to be relaxed. Because you think you're relaxed in a city. You're not, ever.
Everything feels frantic and hurried, right?
Yes.
And I told this story once before on the podcast, but when because I moved out here from San Diego 20 plus years ago, my neighbor met me at the mailbox, and I'm like, I'm still in my LA mode. I'm grabbing my mail, I'm jumping in my truck. I'm like, hey, Danny, I go, and he goes, hey, Steve, how's it going? We were building the house. How's the house? And I was like, oh, it's going good, Danny. And then I finally was like, why the hell am I in such a hurry? So him and I stood there and talked, and we eventually became good friends. I just talked to him for half an hour. It was you have to consciously say, I got to slow down.
Yeah, I did.
Yeah. But you can do that in Dripping Springs.
I remember when I first started working for you, you got a text in the middle of the day, and you're like, why would this person text me in the middle of the day? And I'm like, because he's your friend, you jerk. That's what people do. They text each other and they say hi. Yeah. He's like, yeah, you're right. Sorry.
It is hard to turn off. And you know what? When you grow up around it like you and I have, it creeps back sometimes.
It does. 100%.
You got to be aware of it. Yeah.
That's why you have to have strong women like us in your lives to just kind of pull back on the jerk meter.
Yeah. No, it's for sure. It is a daily practice for me to slow down. And even though I've gotten 10 times better, it's I feel like I have at least that much more to go in terms of I hate to sound like a Buddhist, but it's very really being in the moment, when I'm walking my land, just walk the land and be, instead of what are the 10 things I have to do today? What about this? What about that? Getting out of that state. It's not enough to be on land and to be around great, calm people, but it's sort of that's where you have to begin.
Yeah.
I've met people who live in cities who are calm, but they're just maybe at a different level of enlightenment than I am. Like, that's hard to get to.
Yeah.
I don't know if I could have done it in an environment. Like, I had to get to a calm environment. And then I was able to like really kind of ratchet down and come down and down. And I'm still learning, and still improving. But it's like everything about my life. The last 6 months, especially, my wife and I have been like kind of sitting there and like everything about our life's amazing. You know, it's not perfect. We still have struggles, but it's like on the scale of like, you know, good to great. It's like everything's well above good, you know, and into great. And it's like someone asked me the other day, they're like, how you doing? I'm like, yeah, I feel kind of weird. Like, why? I'm like, nothing's wrong. Right? Like, what do you mean? Why do you feel right? After 45 years.
You know what I can equate that to also is that all of my 3 kids, they're grown, they're married now. And I was trying to explain this to my daughter. I said, you know, you've been a recipient of unconditional love, but you have never had to give that until you are a parent.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And there is just something deep and fulfilling about that kind of unconditional and watching your kids flourish as adults and stuff. And so maybe you're starting to feel that kind of peace where maybe if you felt like you weren't ever the recipient of unconditional love, now you're the giver of it. And seeing these beings that you've created run around on the land that you've created and the community that you've created. Yeah. That's a pretty cool kind of soul feeling.
That is awesome, but it is a different thing, I think, when it's almost like my nervous system has just it's like a volume, you know, like there's like, you know, you turn up the volume enough on anything, you hear the buzz. Yeah. So that used to be my default. Yeah. And now the volume's all the way down. There's no buzz in the background. And so it's like, I mean, I had kids, we had 3 kids when we got out here, right? I could have had all that love and I thought I had a bunch when I got here, and it's all still there. It's just way deeper and richer just simply because the buzz is gone, you know? Yeah. Like that, I don't know how else to explain it.
It's an energy shift.
Yeah. Do you still get a little buzz in the back of your brain about the future of our country, how things are going right now?
Man, you know, it's a big part of why I got on land, right? Was having a lot of autonomy and sovereignty, you know, which I can go deep down that that path if you want. But you know what's funny is intellectually, my assessment of the situation has not changed that much. Like, I still think what I thought 2 years ago in terms of there's real hard times coming, right? They're already here. And I mean, overall, right? And more are coming. But I don't know, this is going to sound very woo-woo, but where I am, that assessment's still the same. None of it's changed. I still feel like as long as I do my work, me on myself, with my family, on my land, and in my community, like let's just call it the dripping area. Yeah. I'm going to be fine, you know, and we're going to be fine. I don't mean everybody, you know, I mean, like, it sucks that the Israelis and Palestinians are murdering each other en masse. That's horrible. That's their problem, you know, and I'm really sad that all these Ukrainians and Russians are killing each other. That's not my problem. That's their problem, you know, and they need to solve their problem. Is the U.S. government doing all kinds of nonsense? Yeah, for sure. But in a weird way, that's also not my problem. You know, like
until it starts to hit your backyard.
Well, that's right. What's going on in the border now.
I'm absolutely with you. Yep. A lot of those problems can totally leak on, and then parts of those problems become my problem. I'm with you. That's why I'm very prepared. Yeah. Water, power, energy, defense, community, all of that. Food. Yeah, totally. Yeah, for sure. There's no doubt that I'm going to have to deal with impacts of problems that aren't mine. Okay. Then I just, then I do, you know, like and we'll deal with it. Like,
Michelle and I, when COVID hit and they started shutting things down and doing all the stuff they did, we talked a lot of times about, I'm 61 tomorrow, but it was the first time in my life I felt, I don't use the word peon, like I'd always felt like I was the master of my own destiny until, and I know that's not true. To a certain extent, you're never you master your own destiny. But at that point, I felt like just a little pawn that they were just going to move around any place they wanted. And I never got used to that feeling. Then that scares me.
Well, you know what's funny? I totally get what you mean. I'm laughing because I'm like, I went through the same thing. But I've actually come back to the feeling of master my own destiny, but in a totally different way, from a totally different angle. Yeah. The feeling of master my own destiny, for me at least, used to come from almost like an ego-based thing where I'm like, oh, I'm so good at this, and I'm good at that, and I've got this, and I've got that, right? It was a materialist, consumerist. It was
stuff,
right? Yeah. Well, not just stuff, but like social power, things like that, right? And then that totally shattered COVID. I'm with you. But I feel like it's almost like a photo negative of that. Like it's the same feeling, except everything's different about it, because it's not like, they're supposed to sing this off grid. I'm not independent. No one can touch me. That's nonsense.
No.
That's of course nonsense.
Of course not.
But it's like now it's like, I feel like I have started to understand. Again, this is gonna sound so woo and out there, but I've started to understand that almost all of my reality I create with my own thoughts. And I don't mean that literally. Like I didn't create this table. Yeah. I don't create dripping with my mind. That's silly.
Sure.
But nonetheless, some to 90 to 99% of what I'm going to have to deal with and it will affect me in my life is going to come from either me or how I perceive the things that happen outside of me. And as long as I can control that and deal with that, I can deal with almost anything that comes.
Well, because it's also not just about you anymore, because you're responsible for four other humans,
4 kids and a wife, and then tons of animals.
Yeah. It's scary when it hits you. That I want to be the master of my own destiny, but I'm in charge of making sure all these other people are safe and secure.
Well, yeah, you get to the point sometimes when you're a parent and you're like, okay, when's the adult coming in the room? And I'm like, oh wait,
that's me.
I'm the adult.
That's me. Right here.
Crap, they're screwed now.
Yeah. Do you think we can get the country back on track? And when I say back on track, have we ever been on track?
Yeah, to see that you.
Or they just saying the quiet part out loud now, right?
Yeah. So again, my answer, the way I even look at this question, has radically shifted over the last 3 years. I think I drastically. I thought I understood how corrupt and broken the system was in 2019. I really did. And I think compared to almost everyone, I was very, very awake. And then even I was like, Christ, I really didn't get how bad it really, really was. And the metaphor I always use is like, if you think of like, let's just call the deep state, right, as a term. The deep state and the deep corporate state. So like all the people who have money and power and influence like at a high level and can put that money, power, and influence into effect in institutions, right? If you think of that as a term, think of them as a parasite. And I think pre-COVID, the parasite was big and it sucked a lot of life out of the host being in the country, but it didn't. In biology, there's a tipping point where parasitic load gets too high and it kills the host. I think COVID triggered that tipping point. And I think the parasitic load of whatever you want to call it, the elites or the deep corporate state or whatever, I think the parasite is now bigger than the host. And so the host has to die or transform, right? And again, here's what's crazy. I'm not sure if America as a country ever really existed outside of maybe a short period of time and the story in a bunch of people's heads, right? I mean, I know legally, I get like, I'm not talking about literally, I'm saying, think metaphorically, right? What I care about, man, are myself, my family, my community, you know? And like, I care about, like, I don't know, people in South Carolina in the abstract, but I'm not going to sit around and stress about them and worry about them. My problem is not the United States. Like, I don't mean that,
that's actually pretty deep when you think about it. Yeah.
Well, because like that doesn't make sense. Like the United States doesn't actually really exist to me. And I mean this not literally, but more metaphorically. You two exist.
Sure.
The schools in this community exist. The food chain, the supply chain in this community exists, right? Like, and of course South Carolina exists, but like that's a problem for people in South Carolina. Yeah. What I was saying about Israelis and Palestinians and Ukrainians and Russians is not fundamentally different than here.
You're thinking more micro now versus macro, right?
Because when things get very turbulent and chaotic, like when the parasite kills the host, things like everything breaks apart and then things localize, right? Look at the fall of any major empire, Mongolian Empire, British Empire, Roman Empire. What happens when empires fall? Right, there's kind of a process which the U.S. is absolutely going through, but then power, the major power breaks, and then there's a turbulent period, and then lots of little centers of power arise. Right. I think that's where we are, right? And so I'm not worried about. I mean,
being labeled an extremist, because when you think outside of, I know, but when you think outside of their little box,
I don't care.
What you're labeled as.
That's their problem, not mine. No. Here's the hard reality: America has, whether it has been an empire in fact for at least 50 years, at least, probably longer, right? And it hasn't felt like an empire to us. But why don't you ask anyone in the Middle East whether we're the good guys or the bad guys? And I mean our government, right? Not the three of us. Right? Like I didn't call in airstrikes on Iraqi children. Yeah. That was Obama, right? But like we haven't been, and I'm in quote, there was maybe a short period post-World War II where America and the American government, et cetera, were the good guys. That's been over for probably 70 years, if we're being really honest. Yeah. But 50 to 70 years. It's been over. Yeah. Like the American, and we can all, like, wanting to believe in the American ideal and the American people, I'm all behind you. Yeah. Right? But when people say America, what they usually mean is the government. The government. And that's not something. That's not an institution that in any way, shape, or form I'm behind.
Our government's gotten so heavy-handed in every aspect of our life that it's not serving the people anymore. Now the people,
I'm not sure. Like that's not a recent thing, man.
No, but it's got but it's gotten worse, I think.
Look, the question of when America went from a republic to an empire is a really good one that not a lot of people ask. I think the best case is 1865.
Really?
Oh yes. I think if you actually look, I think you could make a great case for 1793 for the Whiskey Rebellion. George fucking Washington took a bunch of soldiers and went and killed a bunch of the dudes who fought for the revolution over whiskey tax, right? Because like that, you can make a good case that ended there. I don't think it's the best case. I think the best case is 1865. I think a really good case is also 1945, right? You can make a great case for 65 or 45. It doesn't really matter, honestly. What matters is there is a large or a small group of people who have been running the American government in a way that is in no one's interest but their own. And the sooner that people understand that parasite is there and has probably sucked the host dry, the better we can actually start to deal with that reality.
Well, and in your analogy, you talked about the big government falling apart and a bunch of littler governments. We've all been scared to let that happen, and that point of turmoil in the middle is what everybody's scared about, what that looks like. But maybe that's one of the best things that would happen. We've talked on the show about Texas seceding, you know, what that would look like. That would be sort of an example of what you're talking about. Now Texas is in charge of itself.
I'm a big fan of sovereignty in all ways. Yeah. Personal sovereignty, family sovereignty, community sovereignty, local sovereignty. I'm a big fan. I mean, like that's. If you look at a theme in my life, it's been more and more and more sovereignty. Now, why most people don't like sovereignty is because the thing that necessitates sovereignty, that absolutely powers it, you cannot be sovereign without, is responsibility.
Yep.
And there are very, very few people who want to actually take any real substance, because it's hard and it's scary and it sucks. And I get it. It's taken me a long time to take. I was as irresponsible as you could get at 25. I'm not sure you could have been. Like, the only thing I didn't do was drink and drive. That's about it.
Yeah.
You're the poster child for irresponsibility.
In a lot of ways, I really was, truly. And so my journey has been taking responsibility for what I did, for myself, for everything. And it's been hard, man. It's been really hard.
You know, one of the quotes that I heard you say was, "The devil doesn't come dressed in a red cape and pointy horns. He comes as everything you've ever wished for."
Right. And what you wish for is someone to take care of you.
Yeah. And
But
what
there's a
you're
price
saying
for
right
that.
now, it's like
sovereignty.
Yeah.
No, you know who Jordan Peterson said that. Jordan's a great friend of mine. One time he said to me, he goes, "Listen, every piece of sovereignty you relinquish will be taken up by a tyrant and used against you." That's where America is right now.
Look what's happening.
That's
that
America right now.
Take care of us.
And there's a portion of us, I think, that to some degree have woken up to this and are getting it's why Dripping went from a tiny, sleepy, nothing community in 3 years to a ton of people like me and JP and all those people are out here is it's not an accident. It's because we can get land, we can build a resilient homestead for ourselves. Right. We could be around other people who are acting like this, and we're in probably the best state in America, if not the best place in the world, to make a stand if we have to, whatever that means.
We have started seeing more and more of that in real estate with the homesteading.
Our real estate business in the last couple of years we've been calling
exploded.
Homesteaders, where it's somebody that wants to be on their own power, well, septic, chickens, goats, and can be 10 acres, can be 50 acres. But
So here's the thing that most of those people, I got wrong, and most of those people get wrong, is they think the thought is still the old school prepping, like the nuclear Holocaust prepping.
Yeah,
like
the tunnels.
I have to have a place to hide,
bunker,
right? Everyone starts there. I did too. What I realize now is, okay, listen, it's important to have sources of water and food and all that. The most important thing is community. If you are not around great people who can also provide for themselves and you don't have great relationships with them, then you're not going to make it. It kind of doesn't matter how bad it gets.
I got a community. It's not as big as your community, but I got a community.
They're going to run. Yeah. They're running the other way.
Well, so you're in this two lives that you've had. You had to slowly turn down, or maybe turned it down all of a sudden, that early life, and now you're doing something different. What are you doing now to make a living versus that younger life?
I made a lot of money. I sold a lot of books, like 4 or 5 million. So I
sold a couple.
Right, I did pretty well with that. And then I invested some of that pretty, like Deep Eddy. I was one of the initial investors in Deep Eddy, which did really well. Yeah,
one of Michelle's favorite places to go.
It is a great place to go.
Are you still an investor there? Or you sold out?
We sold to Heaven Hill 6 years ago.
Yeah, that's right.
And so I've done pretty well in that regard. And then I started a company called Scribe Media, which helped people write and publish their books, which I sold a year ago. Now,
you did? You sold it?
Yeah, I sold.
So are you still working for them?
No, I don't work for people.
Well, you know what I mean. Usually hey, we're gonna buy your company, but you got to stay with us.
No, I'm not doing that.
Are you still co-writing or writing?
I actually just launched, because I still have a lot of people who come to me for help writing their memoirs, because that's kind of the thing that I'm known for. And so me and the woman who ran the book coaching program at Scribe, her name's Emily, we started just a small little, almost like a coaching business called Tell Your Story, which actually had the launch. Yeah, we don't even have our site up. It's just on my website. We just launched, and we've got our first cohort going through helping them with memoir right now. So, I mean, that's, in terms of quote unquote work, that's basically all I do now, because it's one of those things where it pays really well. I really like it. It doesn't feel like work. It's really valuable to the people I help. And so it's kind of wins all around. And I enjoy it. And then also I'm writing my next memoir, and I'm struggling so much. It's going so slow and so difficult. And one of the best ways for me, at least, to get help is to give help. And so like I got a bunch of people who are paying me to help them write their memoir, and then my commitment to them is I'm doing mine as well, and they get to see my rough drafts and everything. And so I got all these people paying me this money. Like I'm not going to let them down. I'll let myself down all day a lot of times.
I hear you.
But like I won't let them down. So,
and part of what you're doing is this podcast, right? I listened to some of my entire self-defense system, which was really good. Are you monetizing that too?
No, that's mainly just because I have so many people who come to me and like, they see what I've done, or they'll come visit my place. And they like my buddy who fixes, he's like a car mechanic. He came out to visit. He goes, bro, you didn't own a screwdriver 3 years ago. He's like, you have like a joiner and like a lathe now. He's like, what the hell's going on? And I'm like, because you like, I'm not one of those people who, and not judgment, but like I have certain friends out here who bought land and they just, it's no different than Barton Creek. They're just hiring people to run all their stuff, right? Yeah. Which is like, okay, fine. If you want to do that, fine, whatever. That's your thing. I didn't want to do that. I wanted to at least learn how to do as much as I could. I'm not trying to be like a master electrician, but I at least want to know, what does the red mean and what does the black mean?
Get your hands dirty.
I'm the same way. Yeah. Whenever I do something, I don't want to just hire somebody and just push buttons. I want to know, okay, how's this work? Yeah. When we did this podcast, I figured all this out. And I enjoyed every step of it. Well, almost every step, but I'm with you.
Don't
Tucker.
ask Steve to help move heavy things. He won't.
I'm 61, man.
He won't do it.
I can do it. I'm just smart enough now to know, no, I might hurt myself, and I don't want to do that.
He'll open the door for me, but I'm carrying that shit out to my car.
That's right. So Tucker, public service, probably, I think this is from your public service for the men that listen, from your earlier years. I think I found this on your website. You said 20 plus years experience learning what women really want from men and why, and how do men deliver. So fill us in, man. What do women want?
I wrote a book about this.
Oh, I can't.
Well, give us the Cliff Notes version.
Okay, let me. Go ahead.
Oh, she's going to say, no, I know your point of view, Michelle.
No, please.
No.
Don't worry. I'm going to share my opinion the same way either way. So
I want to hear the Cliff Notes.
Well, I mean, it's tough to do a Cliff Notes version, right? But when young guys come to me, or older dudes who are confused, but generally it's young guys who are completely confused. Like, I'm doing poorly with women. What's wrong? And I usually just start with the basics. Like, what do you have to offer to a woman? And they're like, what? Like they haven't even thought of the fact that just showing up isn't enough. That like basic things like, am I clean? Am I in shape? Do I have a job?
Yeah. Do I have a car?
Do I know how to have a conversation?
Do I smell?
Do I smell? Yeah. Do I add something to this woman's life or not? Like, they don't understand the entire, not every young dude by any stretch, but a lot just don't even think about what they bring to the equation. Am I they think attractive as like this abstract thing. Like, I need to have a Ferrari, or I need to be a YouTube star. It's like, well, yeah, you can do that. That's fine, but probably unrealistic for you, one. And two, it doesn't really actually make you attractive to just about any woman you're going to want to have a relationship with. If you just want to hook up, then, okay, there are paths to do that. That's fine. But the basics of what attraction means for a man, most men really just don't understand. And like, I can't tell you how many dudes I've been like, just help them understand the basics. And then they actually are great from there. They almost everything else they can figure out on their own or get through experience. You know
what I think? I think first and foremost, real women, real American women, they don't want douchebags, number one, but they want men, real masculine men.
And what do you mean by that? Do you mean holding the door open?
I want somebody that's gonna hold the door open for me.
What she's talking about is a provider.
Is a provider.
I get it.
Okay, but here's the problem. I agree. I think a ton of women want that. The problem is that the most messages that most dudes, especially young dudes, get are not that message.
I was
I'm
just
sure.
going to say that. So
especially not this generation.
Got social media about if you hold a door, then you're saying that the woman's too weak, and if you stand up for them, well, they can stand up for themselves because men and women are equal. But I also think that there's this trend of, well, of course, women should be attracted to me. I'm entitled for women to be attracted to me.
That tends to be older guys.
Is that right?
Oh, yeah. Those are, I have a lot of friends who got divorced, like maybe married a little early, divorced late 30s, early 40s, who are pretty successful in life, and they get back in the market, and they're kind of like, they have this entitlement complex. Like, I've checked all the boxes I'm supposed to check to be attractive. You owe me attraction.
I think that goes back to what Michelle said. That sounds like a douchebag to me.
Yeah, well.
It's like, well, hey, I have the Ferrari. Of course you should be attracted to me.
Acting like that is very douchebag. For sure.
I didn't raise my boys in that sense, though. My boys found really they have very good loving relationships, but they're manly. They're manly men, right? I mean, they're just I think boys nowadays were so feminized that it's swinging back, and they want somebody who's going to stand up, who's going to protect them.
Okay, but let me, because most men don't know what you mean when you say that. You probably know what you mean,
Michelle,
and your boys might be this way. Most, like, if you're a 16-year-old kid who grew up without a dad, or dad in and out, or maybe a dad who wasn't like this, he doesn't know what you mean. Right. So the way I agree with you, but the way I talk about that with young guys is, can you do things? Are you competent at things? Can you provide, right? Like, literally, can you provide food? Like, let's just start there.
I was going to say,
can
you don't need to
provide
provide the multi-million-dollar mansion.
No.
Yeah, just,
can you provide safety?
Right.
Can you, and then the next level is formidable. Like, are you good at things or not? Right. And guys can understand that. Like, oh, okay, I can understand. Do I have resources? But that's before you even get to really understanding a woman, what she wants, connecting with her. Those are all important. But I think the foundational parts of masculinity are that, right? Are you competent? Can you provide? Are you formidable, right? And if you are you responsible, actually? Even before formidable, are you responsible at least for yourself?
Are you 25 and sleeping still at your mom's house?
Right.
What do you mean by formidable?
So formidable means like, all right, like just in any sort of field, formidable means are you really good at what you do? Like, you wouldn't use the word, but like, okay, I'll give you a really good example. When I moved into my place here, I put in 2 generators, and I called 3 electricians to come out and give me quotes. The first one, you guys probably, Purcell, right? Like, he came out and with his crew, and like, he looked exactly like I would imagine an electrician, and he acted like an electrician. They measured everything. They were just on point, right? And I'm like, oh, this is what an electrician should be like. He's a formidable electrician.
I gotcha.
And I thought all of them would be like this. And the next 2 came out, and they were like Barney Fife bumbling idiots.
Yeah.
Like literally, Purcell shows up and goes, oh, he's like, all right, the box is here. We got a blah, blah. And like, I was like, oh, okay. The next guy took him 30 minutes to figure out where the generator should go. Purcell looked around and walked right there. Which, as an electrician, I would assume that's a thing that, like where the power box or whatever the fuck it's called, like, you should know that. Right. Like, that's an easy thing. The third dude never even thought to think about it.
Yeah.
Like it was so crazy, right? And so that's formidable means you can do your not just competent, but you're really good at it. Like if there was an electrician competition, like if there's an electrician competition, I'm like, fuck, I'd hate to go against Purcell.
Yeah. Well, we talk about that in our real estate business all the time. We don't necessarily measure ourselves against everybody else. We want to be the best real estate team that we can be. Period, right. And that's what we're always striving for. But so when you said formidable, I was thinking you do jujitsu, and so part of that is you can protect your family.
Yeah, of course.
So you take that pretty seriously. And so what are all the things you're doing to be a good protector?
Well, you know what's great? In 2019, if you told me, bro, you need to really get serious about being able to use violence against people I'd have been like, we live in America. What's wrong? Like, I don't need to carry a gun. It's in 2023. I mean, now, especially in Texas, like, it's unsafe. It is absolutely. You just saw what happened
in Austin.
Like, although Austin, Houston, someone just tried to shoot up the biggest mega church in the country.
Yeah, that's right. That's right.
Think about like what has to be going on in their mind and in society for someone to shoot up a church. Yeah. Right. This is by no means a unique situation, right? No. Yeah. So, like, I mean, we all saw what happened in the summer of 2020. I think it's going to get worse for this election. I think this presidential election coming up to it is going to get real bad.
Buckle up, Buttercup. Right. That's what I think.
No,
too.
I think it's going to get real bad, and it's going to get real unsafe. And so, what I've done in the ensuing 4 years, I was already great at hand-to-hand combat, jiu-jitsu, but like, listen. Hand-to-hand combat's fantastic, but there's not a lot of self-defense situations with like criminals or whatever where you're fighting someone who's unarmed, right? That's not really a thing. You're generally going to be fighting someone who has a knife or a gun or some sort of weapon, right? And the fact is, I don't even want a fair fight. If we're talking about like someone's trying to shoot up, trying to hurt my family, I'm not interested in a fair fight.
Well, I was saying the last thing you want to do is go hand-to-hand with somebody at that point.
No, I'm interested in stopping them.
Right.
From hurting me or my family or anyone else. That's what I want. And so like hand-to-hand's great. It's a great base. But I've mainly been knife and gun training since, you know, like I carry everywhere I go now. Like it's just a part of my body and I don't even think about it. Like it took me a long time to get used to that and to get really good with a gun. And I mean, I built my own gun range on my ranch. And then like I have a crew, we train every other Sunday together. There's like 6 of us and we do like serious stuff. And because if I think it's unsafe and I'm actually worried, I need to be ready. I need to be capable and ready to use force if I have to protect myself, my family, my community. Right? It's bro, it is in 2019. I just never would have thought that like, I mean, listen, I've always been pro gun, but I've always also been like, well, like I used to be, well, let's be reasonable, but no, like now I'm like, I want a fucking tank. Like, you know, thou shall not infringe. Like, no.
But when you train, like you're saying, when you train on a regular basis, you also have better judgment.
100%.
If you're very rarely around guns and you're put in a really bad situation,
you're going to be highly stressed and you're going to make mistakes.
And you know, part of maybe why you think this election will be maybe one of the worst ones, or the
most violent and most contentious for sure,
is there's a big push for people to remove guns. And I would actually, my point of view is we need more guns because we want the people that would go in and shoot up churches to be afraid that they're going to die instantly if they do that.
Did you hear what just happened in Hawaii also?
No.
That was hilarious.
Yeah,
what was that? Bless their hearts.
The spirit of Hawaii supersedes the Second Amendment. The Second Amendment.
I did.
Yeah,
the Hawaiian Supreme Court. Yeah.
And it's like, I don't think that's how that works. Well, then go away.
But do you see how like
people are moving?
Hold on. Let's tie that back in. You like how people are like, well, what do we do to save America? I'm like, I love the concept of America, but maybe the concept of America isn't for everywhere.
Yeah.
The concept of the original founding concept is one of free sovereign people setting up a situation where they rule themselves. The Hawaiian Supreme Court has said, no, we don't want that. Okay. Well, I'm going to go shoot them up to make them be free? That actually was the fight in 1865. It was not a fight over slavery. Slavery was an important issue, but it wasn't the issue. Right. The issue was, is the South going to pay taxes to the federal government or not? That's why the guns started, right? Slavery became an issue because Lincoln used it to win the war and sway stuff, and which is fine. I get it. Like, I'm all about freeing slaves, right? In all ways, shapes, and forms. But like, I'm not going to go, I don't think anyone should put boots on the ground and murder Hawaiians because they don't want to be free. If they want,
is the answer you move away from there?
I don't live in Hawaii.
No, I'm saying if you were Hawaiian and you're like, hey, I want to be able to protect myself, do you move away?
That's what I would do. Yeah. I mean, I probably never would have moved to Hawaii because that's never been a free place in any way, shape, or form. Maybe in the 40s or something, but like in my lifetime, right? It's just never a place I would go because they've always been like that, you know, like since the. They've been Democrat for most of our lifetime, you know?
I think that's probably why more people now are paying attention to your local elections and to what's happening in your own backyard versus just this like...
Who's your county sheriff is one of the most relevant decisions in your life in terms of your personal safety and security.
Yeah.
Yeah. where you live, how well you defend yourself, how trained you are, how prepared you are. Second, third is probably who your county sheriff is.
And that's Cutler right now, but hopefully it'll be Anthony Hippolito.
Yeah, hopefully. Yeah. Well, Tucker, what's next for you think?
I got to take him to art class.
Okay, after art class.
I mean, man, like everything I just said is true. Like everything I'm doing right now is about building myself, building my family, building my homestead, building my community. That's it. Like I don't want to say I don't care about America. That's not true. Of course I care about America, but like I'm just not a believer in like I'm going to be on Twitter and make America better. No, I'm going to make my family better. Yeah. I'm going to make myself better. I bought a nice piece of land in Dripping, but it can be way better. I've got all kinds of wood chips to spread. We're putting in amazing nursery. We're putting in like an orchard, like all this crazy, like that's going to make the world, my world better. And in effect, the world better, right? And I can meet a lot more people in Dripping. I can make better connections with my neighbors. I can help them more. I can get help more. Like that's what I'm focused on.
You were also involved in Living Oaks.
Starting a school,
The school. So talk about that just real quick.
So we were at Austin Waldorf when COVID hit, and then Austin Waldorf went like full lunatic woke. Like really, like the headmaster sent like a 3,000 word email about George Floyd. And it was like, what the fuck are you talking about, man? Wow. Like, this has nothing to do. It's a horrible thing. Like, the video upset me too. It has nothing to do with the school. Nothing. Kids, nothing. And they're, we're going to teach our kids that our kindergartners, they're racists. Like, no, you're not.
Was there a lot of parents that were kind of doing the same thing like you going, what?
No, we all, there was a group of about 60 or to 100 families who all left together. We started a school called Freedom School. It was in, Bee Caves, right, at Star Hill Ranch. And then because people lived all over, that school ended up breaking up into 3 different schools. So there's Raphael Springs, which is, I think, still in Bee Caves. And then there's Living Oaks, which is out here in Dripping. And then there's another one in Spicewood, I think called The Pride or something. And, people like Mickey Wills and Del Bigtree and Kyle Kingsbury and us and we were all at Austin Waldorf, all left. And then like now we have like all these Waldorfs because Austin Waldorf used to have a 5-year wait and it's open enrollment now because the administration is so lunatic woke there.
Really?
Yeah, it's great. It's bad. But that's why we started Living Oaks is because I love the Waldorf system and the Steiner philosophy and all that. And so I wanted my kids to come up in that. And then there's another family that really spearheaded this. We just kind of like with them kind of cut a check and then a bunch of people kind of built it. I'm not on the board of it anymore. I was last year, but just for the first year. And then, but I still have 2 of my kids still go there. Okay. It's a fantastic Waldorf school.
Are they growing to like maybe include high or middle school and high school?
I think that's the goal eventually. Right now it is like I think nursery, like pre-K, K, and then I think it goes up to like 6th grade, 5th or 6th grade. But yeah, the goal ideally is like as the kids age, you just kind of add classes. I mean, like we have a great lunch program there with like a full-time chef. I told you guys. Chef Aaron, you should have on your podcast. He's amazing.
We would love that.
There's a lot of new schools popping up and Dripping. Ours is not the only one, just because there's a lot of people coming out with a lot of kids. I think if you have young kids and you're kind of in any way, shape, or form about freedom or sovereignty or whatever, you're congregating in places like Dripping. Yeah. And there are a lot of people here who are very entrepreneurial, who are starting stuff and have a lot of kids.
We
and
have somebody coming on next week that's starting up in a school, right?
Yeah.
I can't remember who that is, but... well, Tucker, I think you coming on our podcast is going to open you up to your opinions and who you are up to a lot of your neighbors now. So I'm sure people will come up to you. Where do you hang out mostly in town?
My homestead.
Your homestead, yeah. Well, if you go to any coffee shops or anything, I'm sure people will come up to you.
Well, we go to Alchemy all the time. It's great. Mazama, I go to Pigpen, Abby Jane's.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
The normal places.
Yeah. We were just talking earlier about really kind of supporting your local businesses, your local small businesses. How everybody's just kind of.
I go to I buy everything I can from Triple S as opposed to Tractor Supply or Home Depot. Just they're super nice, local business. Like, of course, I'm gonna
12 Fox.
Right, I don't. Yeah, 12 Fox. Those dudes are great.
Yeah.
Love them.
Love
like,
Joe. Love Joe. He's a great guy.
I don't drink much beer, but if ever I want to meet, they want to meet. I'm like, oh, we'll just go to 12 Fox, of course, or One Shot. I mean, there's so many. Like Phil,
the dollars in our town should stay in our town. It's like you don't want to go spend that in places where they're just going to ship it off to some corporate office in Portland or whatever.
I could not agree more. Every chance I get, I buy from someone who is either local or I know and trust. Like, I don't buy meat anywhere anymore except from either I hunt it myself. We raise sheep on our place, and then like cows, I know the rancher. Like, he's my friend. Yeah. I buy cows from him. Great. Why would I go buy cows anywhere or meat anywhere else?
Well, in that food chain, if things go to hell in a handbasket, that food chain will still be okay. Yeah, the HEB might close down, but you could still go get your beef from your.
Have you guys? You should have like a series of like where you have people in town who are like, oh, this is a cattle rancher. Here's how he raises. Because my guy, like, he raises grass-fed, grass-finished, totally unvaccinated. Like, he puts nothing in them. Yeah, and like he like charges normal price. I'm like, bro, you should charge 3 times more. Like, go right, because it's amazing, and then there's a lot of people who value that.
I'd like to have that hookup. After this, you give me that hookup.
Will it be Sac Ranch? I'm happy to.
Okay. We need to get him on the show.
I feel so honored that you decided to kind of give us a chance, your little local.
It's my community. Why? Of course.
I appreciate your time.
I would rather come here than some place big show I know where it's like they're in LA. It's like another LA person.
Yeah. Well,
we are definitely not LA people.
We're definitely not LA. Yeah. What you see is what you get. Well, Tucker, we're honored that you spent this time with us. I've really enjoyed this, and I've got some of my questions answered. The conversation was fascinating.
Yeah, thank you. So. I appreciate it.
Yeah, appreciate it. Thanks for coming in.
Thank you so much.
Of course.
Ready to turn your land dreams into reality? Look no further than Capital Farm Credit.
Need a loan for your perfect piece of land? Capital Farm Credit is there for you.
Their dedicated team will tailor a loan to fit your unique needs because your dreams are their priority.
Capital Farm Credit. Your land, your legacy. Visit capitalfarmcredit.com or Mark Rutledge at 512-892-4425.
Capital Farm Credit. Together, we're better.
Capital Farm Credit, an equal credit housing lender. Elevate your living experience with M. Elliott Studio, your trusted partner in interior design, registered and licensed by the state of Texas.
You want your home to reflect your personal style and identity. Investing in a well-crafted design doesn't just beautify your home, it enriches your life.
Team principal and owner, Montana Elliott, understands the profound impact of a thoughtfully designed space. From remodeling to full design, M. Elliott Studio is the first step to unlocking your style.
Turn your aspirations into reality. Tailored to your taste and desires, M. Elliott Studio will work to create an environment that embraces your style with style.
Your space, their expertise.
MElliottStudio.com 512-781-0224.
This show has been brought to you in part by the real estate pros at the Mallet Integrity Team. When you're looking to buy or sell, you need them on your side. Why settle for less when you can have real estate done right? Give them a call at 512-829-2062 or get more info at malletintegrityteam.com.
You know you like us, so go now to Apple Podcast or Spotify and leave us a review. Why don't ya? We love your feedback and comments. Email us at malletandmichelle@gmail.com.
Thanks for putting up with us.